Nina's hands trembled as she stared at the pregnancy test in Rose's purse. 2 pink lines. Her heart stopped beating for what felt like an eternity. The woman her husband had been lying about for months was carrying his child. The same child Nina had been desperately trying to give him for 3 years of marriage. She heard footsteps approaching the bedroom and quickly closed the purse, her world crashing down around her. Max's voice echoed from downstairs, smooth and practiced. "Nina, darling, I'm home. Rose just stopped by to discuss the charity event." Another lie, the final lie that would expose everything. Hey there, welcome to Mafia and Romance. Tonight we're diving into a story that will leave you absolutely speechless. Drop a comment telling us where you're watching from, and don't forget to subscribe to the channel. Your support makes all the difference in bringing you these incredible stories. Let's get started. Nina Castellano had always prided herself on being the perfect mafia wife. For 3 years, she had stood by Max's side through every business meeting, every family gathering, every public appearance that required the polished image of Las Vegas royalty. Their penthouse overlooking the Strip was a testament to their success. Marble floors, crystal chandeliers, and floor-to-ceiling windows that offered a breathtaking view of the city that never slept. But tonight, as she arranged white roses in a crystal vase, something felt different. Max had been distant lately, taking calls in his study with the door locked, leaving for business meetings that stretched well into the night. When she asked about his day, his answers came too quickly, too rehearsed. "The Bellagio deal is taking longer than expected," he would say, not meeting her eyes. "You know how these negotiations go." Nina knew the casino business inside and out. She had grown up in this world, the daughter of a respected family that had built their empire long before the corporate chains moved in. She understood the language of power, the delicate dance of alliances and territories. What she didn't understand was why her husband's explanations felt hollow. The elevator chimed, announcing Max's arrival. Nina smoothed her black dress and checked her reflection in the hallway mirror. Even after 3 years of marriage, she still felt a flutter of anticipation when he came home. Max Castellano was devastatingly handsome, sharp jawline, piercing blue eyes, and the kind of presence that commanded respect from everyone in the room. "Nina," his voice carried through the penthouse, warm and familiar. "In the living room," she called back, setting down the last rose. Max appeared in the doorway, his tailored suit slightly wrinkled, his dark hair tousled as if he had been running his hands through it. He crossed the room in 3 long strides and pulled her into his arms, pressing his lips to hers with an intensity that made her knees weak. "I missed you," he murmured against her ear, his hands tangling in her long brown hair. "You were only gone for 4 hours," Nina laughed, but she melted into his embrace anyway. This was the Max she had fallen in love with, passionate, devoted, completely focused on her, as if she were the only woman in the world. "4 hours too long," he said, spinning her around until she giggled like a teenager. "Have I told you today how beautiful you are?" "Only 3 times, she teased, straightening his tie. "But I don't mind hearing it again." Max's expression grew serious as he cupped her face in his hands. "Nina, you know I would do anything for you, right? Anything to protect what we have?" Something in his tone made her stomach tighten. "Of course. Max, is everything okay? You've seemed—" "Everything's perfect," he interrupted, kissing her forehead. "I just want you to remember that. No matter what happens, no matter what you might hear, remember that you're my world." Before Nina could ask what he meant, his phone buzzed. Max glanced at the screen, and his jaw tensed almost imperceptibly. "I need to take this, business." He stepped onto the balcony, sliding the glass door shut behind him. Nina watched through the window as he paced back and forth, his free hand gesturing emphatically. Even from inside, she could see the tension in his shoulders, the way his voice rose and fell with barely contained emotion. When he returned 20 minutes later, his mask was firmly back in place. "Sorry about that. The Bellagio situation is more complicated than I thought." "What kind of complications?" Nina asked, settling onto the leather sofa beside him. "Nothing you need to worry about," Max said, pulling her against his chest. "Just some disagreements about the terms. It'll work out." Nina wanted to press for details, but she had learned early in their marriage, that Max's business dealings were often better left unquestioned. The casino empire that bore the Castellano name operated in shades of grey that she preferred not to examine too closely. "There's something I wanted to talk to you about," she said instead, tracing patterns on his chest with her fingertip. "I went to see Dr. Morrison today." Max's hand stilled in her hair. "Everything okay?" "Everything's fine. We've been trying for so long, and I thought maybe there was something we could do. Some treatment or—" "Nina." Max's voice was gentle but firm. "We've talked about this. These things take time. It's been 3 years, Max. 3 years of hoping every month, of disappointment, of feeling like I'm failing at the one thing that should come naturally." Nina's voice cracked despite her efforts to stay composed. Max shifted so he could look into her eyes. "You're not failing at anything. You're perfect exactly as you are. If it happens, it happens. If it doesn't, we'll have each other, and that's enough for me." "Is it really?" Nina searched his face for any sign of doubt. "Sometimes I see you watching other families, and I wonder if you regret—" "Never," Max said fiercely, crushing her against him. "Don't ever think that. You're all I need, Nina. You're all I've ever needed." His words should have comforted her, but something in his eyes didn't quite match the conviction in his voice. Before she could analyze it further, his phone buzzed again. This time, Max didn't even look at the screen before declining the call, but Nina had caught a glimpse of the name, Rose. "Who's Rose?" she asked, trying to keep her tone casual. Max's hesitation lasted only a fraction of a second, but Nina noticed. "Rose Martinez. She's helping coordinate the charity gala next month. Very dedicated, calls at all hours with updates." "I don't remember meeting her." "She's new. Came highly recommended from the Venetian. You'll meet her at the planning meeting next week." Nina nodded, but something nagged at her. In 3 years of marriage, she had been involved in every charity event, every social gathering that bore the Castellano name. It was unusual for Max to hire someone without consulting her first. The phone buzzed a third time. This time, Max stood abruptly. "I should take this. Rose gets anxious when the details aren't perfect." He disappeared into his study, and Nina heard the soft click of the lock engaging. She stared at the closed door, her mind racing. Max had never locked his study door when taking business calls before. The charity explanation felt rehearsed, just like his stories about the Bellagio deal. Nina walked to the window and gazed out at the glittering lights of Las Vegas. Somewhere in the distance, she could see the Bellagio's fountains dancing in perfect synchronization. Everything in their world was choreographed, controlled, designed to project an image of power and success. But what happened when the choreography started to fall apart? The charity planning meeting was scheduled for Thursday afternoon at the Castellano Casino's executive conference room. Nina arrived early, wanting to review the guest list and menu options before the team assembled. She had organized dozens of these events over the years, each one more elaborate than the last. The annual Castellano Foundation Gala was the social event of the Las Vegas season, raising millions for local children's hospitals. Nina was arranging folders around the conference table when she heard voices in the hallway. Max's deep laugh was unmistakable, but the woman's voice that followed was unfamiliar, soft, melodic, with just a hint of a Spanish accent. "You're terrible, Max. What if someone sees us? Let them see. I'm not ashamed of working with the best event coordinator in the city." Nina frowned. The conversation seemed innocent enough, but there was something in the woman's tone, a familiarity that suggested more than a professional relationship. The conference room door opened, and Max entered with a woman who took Nina's breath away. Rose Martinez was stunning in a way that seemed almost unfair. Long black hair that caught the light like silk, warm brown eyes and curves that her conservative business suit couldn't quite hide. She was younger than Nina, probably mid-20s, with the kind of natural beauty that didn't require enhancement. "Nina, I'd like you to meet Rose Martinez," Max said, his hand resting lightly on Rose's lower back. "Rose, this is my wife, Nina." Rose's smile was radiant as she extended her hand. "Mrs. Castellano, it's such an honor to meet you. Max has told me so much about you." "Please, call me Nina," she replied, shaking Rose's hand and noting how soft her skin was. "Max mentioned you came from the Venetian. What made you decide to work with us?" The Castellano Foundation's reputation speaks for itself, Rose said, her eyes sparkling with enthusiasm. When Max offered me the opportunity to coordinate the gala, I couldn't refuse. This event could change so many children's lives. Nina studied Rose's face, looking for any sign of deception or hidden agenda. But the young woman seemed genuinely passionate about the cause, her excitement infectious as she pulled out a thick portfolio of ideas and vendor contacts. Over the next 2 hours, Nina found herself grudgingly impressed by Rose's professionalism and creativity. The woman had connections throughout the city, innovative ideas for entertainment and fundraising, and a meticulous attention to detail that rivaled Nina's own standards. "What do you think about having the children from the hospital perform?" Rose suggested, spreading photographs across the table. "I visited last week, and some of them are incredibly talented. It would be a powerful reminder of why we're all here." "That's a beautiful idea," Nina said, genuinely moved by the concept. "But are you sure they're well enough to perform?" "I've already spoken with the medical staff. They've identified several children who would love to participate, and we'll have medical personnel on standby throughout the evening." Rose's eyes shone with tears. "One little girl, Sophia, has been practicing a song for weeks. She's only 7, but she has the voice of an angel." Nina felt her chest tighten. 7 years old, the same age her own child would have been if her first pregnancy hadn't ended in miscarriage during their engagement. She had never told Max about that loss, afraid it would change how he looked at her. "Nina?" Max's voice seemed to come from far away. "Are you okay?" "I'm fine," she said quickly, blinking away the sudden moisture in her eyes. "Just thinking about how moving that will be." Rose reached across the table and squeezed Nina's hand. "I'm sorry. I know how emotional these causes can be. That's what makes events like this so important." The gesture was kind, but Nina noticed how Rose's gaze flickered to Max, as if seeking his approval. There was something in that look, a connection that made Nina's stomach twist with unease. "I think we have enough for today," Max said, beginning to gather the papers. "Rose, excellent work as always. Nina, what do you think? Are you comfortable with Rose's vision for the gala?" "It's impressive," Nina admitted. "Rose, you've clearly put a lot of thought into this. Thank you. That means everything coming from you." Rose stood and smoothed her skirt. "I should get going. I have a meeting with the florist in an hour." Max walked Rose to the door, their conversation dropping to whispers that Nina couldn't quite catch. She watched through the glass wall as Max's hand lingered on Rose's arm, the touch lasting a few seconds longer than necessary. When Max returned, his expression was carefully neutral. "So, what's your honest opinion?" "She's very good at her job," Nina said slowly. "Maybe too good." "What do you mean?" "Max, she's been working on this for what, 2 weeks? And she already has relationships with vendors, detailed timelines, backup plans for everything. It's almost like she's been planning events in Las Vegas for years." Max's jaw tightened almost imperceptibly. "She's thorough. That's why I hired her." "When exactly did you hire her? You said she came from the Venetian, but I called my contact there yesterday. They've never heard of Rose Martinez." The silence stretched between them like a taut wire. Max's blue eyes went cold, the warmth from earlier that week completely absent. "Why were you checking up on her?" he asked quietly. "Because I check up on everyone who works closely with our family. It's basic security, Max. You taught me that." "Rose's background is clean. I had her vetted through our usual channels." "Then why did she lie about the Venetian?" Max stood abruptly, his chair scraping against the floor. Maybe she was nervous about the interview. Maybe she embellished her resume. "It happens, Nina. Not everyone is as privileged as we are." The word privileged hit Nina like a slap. Max had never spoken to her that way before, never dismissed her concerns so coldly. "I'm not trying to be difficult," she said, standing to face him. "I just want to understand why you're being so defensive about someone you barely know." "I'm not being defensive, I'm being practical. Rose is doing excellent work. The gala is going to be a huge success, and frankly, I don't understand why you're looking for problems where none exist." Nina stared at her husband, searching for the man who had held her so tenderly just days before. This version of Max was a stranger, cold, dismissive, almost cruel in his indifference to her concerns. "Fine," she said quietly. "I'll trust your judgment." But as they left the conference room together, Nina couldn't shake the feeling that she was missing something crucial. The way Rose had looked at Max, the familiarity in their banter, the defensive edge in Max's voice when questioned about her background, it all pointed to a truth that Nina wasn't ready to face. That evening, as Max worked late in his study, Nina found herself staring at her reflection in their bedroom mirror. At 32, she was still beautiful, still the woman Max had fallen in love with, but Rose Martinez was younger, fresher, unburdened by 3 years of failed attempts at pregnancy and the growing distance that had crept into their marriage. Nina's phone buzzed with a text from her sister. "How's the gala planning going? Mom wants to know if she should buy a new dress." Instead of responding, Nina found herself typing Rose's name into a search engine. The results were sparse. A few social media profiles with minimal information, no professional history, no connections to any major Las Vegas events. For someone who claimed to be an experienced event coordinator, Rose Martinez had remarkably little digital footprint. Nina was about to close her laptop when she noticed something odd. One of the social media photos showed Rose at what appeared to be a restaurant, laughing with someone whose face was partially obscured by shadows. But Nina recognized the watch on the man's wrist, a vintage Rolex that had belonged to Max's father. Her hands shook as she enlarged the photo, trying to make out more details. The timestamp showed it was taken 3 months ago, long before Max claimed to have hired Rose for the gala. 3 months ago, when Max had started taking mysterious phone calls and working late into the night. 3 months ago, when their marriage had begun to feel like a carefully orchestrated performance. Nina closed the laptop and stared out at the Las Vegas skyline, her reflection ghost-like in the window. Tomorrow she would find out exactly who Rose Martinez really was and why her husband was lying about her. But tonight, she would pretend that her world wasn't falling apart, one lie at a time. Nina spent the next morning at the Castellano Casino, ostensibly reviewing security footage for a recent incident involving a high-stakes player. In reality, she was using her access to the building's surveillance system to trace Rose Martinez's movements over the past few weeks. What she found made her blood run cold. Rose had been visiting the casino regularly for months, always during times when Nina was away from the building. The footage showed her entering through the private executive elevator, the one that required Max's personal access code. She stayed for hours at a time, often leaving through the parking garage in the early morning hours. Nina's hands trembled as she watched one particular video from 2 weeks ago. Rose emerged from the elevator, wearing the same dress she had worn to dinner, her hair tousled, her lipstick gone. Max appeared moments later, straightening his tie and checking his watch before heading to his office. The evidence was undeniable, but Nina needed to be certain. She called her private investigator, a discreet woman named Patricia, who had helped the family with background checks and security issues for years. "I need everything you can find on Rose Martinez," Nina said, keeping her voice steady despite the storm raging inside her chest. "Employment history, personal relationships, financial records, everything." "How quickly do you need this?" Patricia asked, her tone professional but concerned. "By tonight." "Nina, that's a very tight timeline for a thorough investigation. Is everything okay?" Nina closed her eyes, fighting back tears. "Just find out who she really is, Patricia. Please." After ending the call, Nina sat in her car in the casino parking garage, trying to process what she had discovered. 3 years of marriage, 3 years of believing she was the center of Max's universe, and it had all been a lie. Her phone buzzed with a text from Max. "Working late again tonight, don't wait up. Love you." The casual cruelty of those words, sending love while planning to spend the evening with his mistress, nearly broke her composure entirely. Nina drove home in a daze, her mind cycling through every interaction with Rose, every lie Max had told, every moment she had dismissed her own instincts in favor of trust. She had been so naive, so willing to believe that their love was different, special, unbreakable. The penthouse felt like a mausoleum when she entered. Every surface gleamed with perfection, every piece of furniture carefully chosen to project success and happiness. But it was all hollow, a beautiful shell hiding the rot beneath. Nina poured herself a glass of wine and stood on the balcony, watching the sun set over Las Vegas. The city sprawled before her like a glittering web, full of secrets and lies and broken promises. She had grown up in this world, understood its rules, but she had never imagined those rules would apply to her own marriage. Her phone rang at 8 o'clock. Patricia's name appeared on the screen. "What did you find?" Nina asked without preamble. "Nina, I think you should sit down. Just tell me." Patricia's sigh was audible through the phone. Rose Martinez isn't an event coordinator. She's a graduate student at UNLV studying social work. She's been working part-time as a waitress at a small restaurant downtown. No event planning experience, no connections to the Venetian or any other major venue. Nina's wine glass slipped from her numb fingers, shattering against the marble floor. What else? She's been receiving monthly payments from an account linked to Max's personal finances. Large payments, Nina. Enough to cover rent, tuition, living expenses. How long? 6 months. 6 months. Nina's mind reeled. Max had been supporting Rose for 6 months, lying to Nina's face for 6 months, building an entire false narrative about charity galas and business meetings. "There's more," Patricia continued gently. "I found medical records. Rose is pregnant, Nina, about 3 months along." The world tilted sideways. Nina gripped the balcony railing, fighting waves of nausea and rage and heartbreak that threatened to consume her entirely. "Are you sure?" she whispered. "I'm sure. I'm so sorry, Nina." Nina ended the call and sank to her knees among the broken glass, not caring that the shards cut through her dress and into her skin. 3 months pregnant. The timeline matched perfectly with when Max had started acting distant, when the lies had begun in earnest. Rose was carrying the child that Nina had been desperately trying to give him for 3 years. She didn't know how long she knelt there, bleeding and broken, before she heard the elevator chime. Max's voice echoed through the penthouse, calling her name with false warmth. "Nina, where are you, beautiful?" She forced herself to stand, brushing glass from her dress and wiping the tears from her cheeks. When Max appeared in the living room, his expression shifted from casual affection to concern. "What happened? You're bleeding." "I dropped a glass," Nina said, her voice surprisingly steady. "Clumsy of me." Max crossed the room quickly, taking her hands in his and examining the small cuts on her palms. "Let me clean these up. You could get an infection." His touch was gentle, caring, exactly the same as it had always been. Nina stared at his face as he tended to her wounds, searching for any sign of guilt or deception. But Max was a master at compartmentalization, able to separate his lies from his genuine emotions with frightening ease. "There," he said, pressing a kiss to her bandaged palm. "All better." "Max," Nina said quietly, "I need to ask you something, and I need you to tell me the truth." His body went very still, but his expression remained open and concerned. "Of course. What is it? Are you having an affair?" The question hung in the air between them like a blade. Max's eyes searched her face, and Nina saw the exact moment he made his choice. "Nina, why would you ask me something like that? It's not an answer. It's a ridiculous question. You're my wife. I love you more than anything in this world." "That's still not an answer." Max's jaw tightened, and Nina saw a flash of the cold stranger from the conference room. "No, Nina, I am not having an affair. I'm insulted that you would even think. Rose is pregnant." The words hit Max like a physical blow. His face went white, then red, then white again. For a moment, his carefully constructed mask slipped entirely, and Nina saw raw panic in his eyes. "How did you—" He caught himself, but it was too late. "So you do know," Nina said, her voice barely above a whisper. "You know she's pregnant, and you know it's yours." Max stood abruptly, pacing to the window and back like a caged animal. "Nina, listen to me. It's not what you think. What I think is that you've been lying to me for months. What I think is that you've been supporting another woman while I've been trying desperately to give you a child. What I think is that our entire marriage has been a joke." "Our marriage is not a joke." Max's voice cracked with emotion. "You're everything to me, Nina. You have to believe that. Then explain, Rose. Explain the lies, the secret payments, the pregnancy. Explain why you chose her over me. Max's shoulders sagged in defeat. When he looked at her again, his eyes were filled with tears. It wasn't supposed to happen. It was just, she was lonely, and I was frustrated about us not getting pregnant. And one night I had too much to drink. One night? Nina's voice rose dangerously. You've been supporting her for 6 months, Max. This wasn't one night of weakness. I tried to end it, I swear to you I tried. But when she told me about the baby... Max's voice broke entirely. Nina, I never meant for this to happen. I never meant to hurt you. Nina stared at the man she had loved with every fiber of her being, and felt something fundamental shift inside her chest. The Max she had married would never have betrayed her this way. The Max she had trusted with her heart would never have lied so easily, so completely. Get out, she said quietly. Nina, please. We can work through this. I'll end it with Rose. Get out! The scream tore from her throat with such force that Max actually stepped backward. Get out of my sight before I do something we'll both regret. Max opened his mouth to argue, then seemed to think better of it. I'll stay at the casino tonight. But Nina, this isn't over. I won't lose you. I can't lose you. After he left, Nina sank onto the sofa and finally allowed herself to fall apart completely. She cried for the marriage she had thought was perfect, for the children she might never have, for the trust that lay shattered like glass on her marble floor. But beneath the grief and rage, something else was growing, a cold, calculating fury that reminded her exactly whose daughter she was. Max Castellano had made the biggest mistake of his life when he chose to betray a woman who had been raised in the shadows of Las Vegas power. And now he was going to learn exactly what that mistake would cost him. Nina didn't sleep that night. Instead, she sat in Max's study, methodically going through every file, every document, every piece of evidence that might give her leverage in the war that was about to begin. By dawn, she had a complete picture of the Castellano Empire's vulnerabilities and a plan that would either save her marriage or destroy it entirely. Her phone buzzed at 7 a.m. Rose's name appeared on the screen. Nina stared at the phone for a long moment before answering. Hello, Rose. Nina? Rose's voice was small, frightened. Max told me you know. About us? About the baby. He did he? And what exactly did he tell you? That you're angry. That you might try to hurt me. Rose's voice cracked. Nina, please. I know you have every right to hate me, but I never meant for this to happen. I never wanted to destroy your marriage. Nina almost laughed at the absurdity of it. You never wanted to destroy my marriage. Rose, you've been sleeping with my husband for 6 months. What did you think would happen? I thought. I hoped. Rose's sobs were audible through the phone. I thought maybe he would leave you. I know that makes me a terrible person, but I love him, Nina. I love him so much it hurts. The raw honesty in Rose's voice caught Nina off guard. She had expected defiance, manipulation, perhaps even threats. She hadn't expected this broken, vulnerable woman who sounded as lost as Nina felt. Where are you? Nina asked. At my apartment. Max said I should stay away from you, that you might... I'm coming over. Nina, I don't think that's a good idea. I'll be there in an hour. We need to talk. Nina hung up before Rose could protest. She dressed carefully in a black suit that projected authority and control, then drove across town to the modest apartment complex where Rose lived. The contrast between this neighborhood and Nina's penthouse was stark. Chain-link fences instead of marble columns, cracked sidewalks instead of manicured gardens. Rose answered the door looking like she hadn't slept either. Her beautiful face was puffy from crying, her hair pulled back in a messy ponytail. She wore an oversized sweater that couldn't quite hide the slight curve of her belly. Thank you for coming, Rose said quietly, stepping aside to let Nina enter. The apartment was small but clean, decorated with the kind of furniture that came from discount stores and thrift shops. But there were touches of warmth everywhere, plants on the windowsill, photographs of family on the walls, books stacked on every available surface. You're studying social work, Nina said. noting the textbook scattered across the dining table. Yes, I want to help children who've been through trauma. Kids like... Rose's hand moved unconsciously to her stomach. Kids like I was. Nina turned to study Rose more carefully. What kind of trauma? Foster care. Group homes. I aged out of the system when I was 18 with nothing but a GED and a lot of anger. Rose's voice was matter-of-fact, but Nina could hear the pain beneath. I've been working my way through college ever since. And Max, how did you meet him? Rose's cheeks flushed pink. I was waitressing at this little Italian place downtown. He came in one night alone, looking like the weight of the world was on his shoulders. We started talking, and he was so kind, so interested in my dreams. He made me feel like I mattered. Nina felt a stab of recognition. That was exactly how Max had made her feel when they first met, like she was the most important person in his universe. When did it become more than conversation? Nina asked. About 6 months ago. I was having trouble with my landlord and Max offered to help. One thing led to another and... Rose's voice trailed off. I know how it sounds. I know you think I'm just a gold digger who seduced your husband for money. Aren't you? Rose's eyes flashed with anger. I never asked him for anything. When I found out I was pregnant, I told him I didn't expect anything from him. I was prepared to raise this baby alone. But he insisted on supporting you. He said it was his responsibility. He said he couldn't live with himself if his child grew up the way I did. Rose's hand moved to her stomach again. Nina, I know this is going to sound crazy, but I think Max loves us both, in different ways for different reasons. But genuinely, Nina stared at this young woman who was carrying her husband's child, trying to reconcile her anger with the growing sympathy she felt. Rose wasn't the calculating seductress Nina had imagined. She was just a girl who had fallen in love with a man who belonged to someone else. What do you want from me, Rose? I want you to know that I never wanted to hurt you. I want you to know that if you asked me to disappear, to give up Max and raise this baby alone, I would do it. Because you were here first. Because you deserve better than what we've done to you. The offer hung in the air between them, genuine and heartbreaking. Nina could see that Rose meant every word, that she would sacrifice her own happiness if Nina demanded it. And what about Max? What does he want? Rose's laugh was bitter. Max wants everything. He wants to keep you because you're his wife, his partner, his equal, and he wants to keep me because I'm carrying his child. He thinks he can have both if he just manages the situation carefully enough. Can he? I don't know. Can you share the man you love with another woman? Can you raise his child knowing it came from betrayal? Can you trust him again after everything he's hidden from you? Nina didn't have answers to those questions. She had come here expecting to confront an enemy, but instead, she had found another victim of Max's inability to choose between duty and desire. There's something else you should know, Rose said quietly. Max doesn't know I'm here, talking to you. He made me promise to stay away, to let him handle everything, but I couldn't live with myself if I didn't give you the chance to hear my side. Why does that matter to you? Because I've spent my whole life being lied to by people who were supposed to protect me. I won't be part of doing that to someone else, even if it costs me everything. Nina studied Rose's face, looking for any sign of deception, but the young woman's brown eyes were clear, honest, filled with a pain that mirrored Nina's own. I need time to think, Nina said finally. Of course, Nina, whatever you decide, I want you to know that I'm sorry. I'm sorry for falling in love with your husband. I'm sorry for getting pregnant. I'm sorry for destroying your marriage. If I could take it all back, I would. Nina nodded and turned to leave, then paused at the door. Rose? The baby. Do you know if it's a boy or a girl? Rose's hand moved to her stomach, and for the first time since Nina had arrived, she smiled. A girl. We're having a daughter. Nina's breath caught in her throat. A daughter. The little girl she had dreamed of for 3 years, the child she had prayed for every night, was growing inside another woman's body. She left Rose's apartment with her heart in pieces, but also with a clarity she hadn't possessed before. This wasn't just about Max's betrayal anymore. This was about a child, an innocent life that deserved better than to be born into a war between 3 broken adults. Nina drove to the cemetery where her parents were buried. needing their guidance more than ever. She sat beside their headstones and told them everything, about Max's lies, about Rose's pregnancy, about the impossible choice she now faced. "What would you do, Mama?" she whispered to the marble angel that marked her mother's grave. "How do you forgive the unforgivable? How do you love someone who's shattered your heart?" The wind rustled through the trees, carrying the scent of desert flowers and distant rain. Nina closed her eyes and tried to imagine what her mother would say. Maria Castellano had been a woman of fierce loyalty and even fiercer pride, but she had also understood that sometimes love required sacrifices that seemed impossible. When Nina opened her eyes, she knew what she had to do. It would be the hardest thing she had ever attempted, but it was the only path that led to any kind of redemption for all of them. Nina drove home to wait for Max, her decision made, but her heart still breaking with every beat. Max returned to the penthouse that evening, like a man walking to his execution. Nina was waiting for him in the living room, still wearing the black suit from her visit to Rose, her hands folded calmly in her lap. "We need to talk," she said, without preamble. Max nodded, his face haggard with exhaustion and guilt. "Nina, I've been thinking all day about what I want to say to you, how I can possibly make this right." "Sit down, Max." He perched on the edge of the sofa across from her, his body tense with anticipation. Nina studied her husband's face, the sharp cheekbones she had traced with her fingertips, the blue eyes that had looked at her with such love, the mouth that had whispered promises he couldn't keep. "I went to see Rose today," Nina said. Max's face went white. "Nina, what did you—" "She's a good person, Max. Broken, vulnerable, but genuinely good. She didn't seduce you for money or status. She fell in love with you the same way I did, completely hopelessly, without considering the consequences." "Nina, I'm not finished." Nina's voice cut through his protest like a blade. "You want to know what I think happened? I think you were frustrated with our fertility struggles, feeling like a failure as a husband. You met a young woman who looked at you like you hung the moon, who didn't expect anything from you except kindness. And for a few hours you could forget about the pressure, the disappointment, the weight of our expectations." Max's eyes filled with tears. "That's exactly what happened. Nina, you have to believe me. It was never about not loving you. It was about feeling like I was failing you every month when the pregnancy test came back negative. So you found comfort in another woman's arms." "Yes." The admission came out as a broken whisper. "And I hate myself for it. I hate that I was weak, that I hurt you, that I've destroyed the most important thing in my life." Nina stood and walked to the window, her back to Max as she gathered her courage for what came next. "The baby is a girl." "Nina, your daughter is going to be born in 6 months, Max. Your daughter with another woman, and you have a choice to make." Max was silent, waiting. "You can choose Rose and your daughter. I'll give you a quiet divorce. You can marry her, and you can have the family you've always wanted. I won't fight you on the division of assets. I won't make this ugly or public. You can have your happy ending. And the other choice?" Nina turned to face him, her eyes dry but filled with a pain so deep it took his breath away. "You can choose me. You can end things with Rose, sign away your parental rights, and we can try to rebuild our marriage. But Max, if you choose me, it has to be completely. No contact with Rose, no relationship with your daughter, no looking back. I won't share you anymore." Max stared at her in horror. "Nina, you can't ask me to abandon my child. I'm not asking you to do anything. I'm giving you a choice, Rose or me, your daughter or our marriage. You can't have both. There has to be another way." "What way, Max? Do you want me to play happy families with your mistress? Do you want to split your time between 2 households, 2 women, 2 lives? Do you want our children to grow up, knowing their father chose another woman over their mother?" "We don't have children." The words hit Nina like a physical blow. She had walked into that trap deliberately, but it still cut deep. "No," she said quietly, "we don't. And we never will if you choose Rose." Max buried his face in his hands, his shoulders shaking with silent sobs. "This is impossible. You're asking me to choose between the 2 people I love most in the world. I'm asking you to take responsibility for your choices. You created this situation, Max. You lied, you cheated, you got another woman pregnant while your wife was desperately trying to give you a child. Now you have to live with the consequences. What if I refuse to choose? What if I fight for both of you?" Nina's smile was cold as winter. "Then you'll lose us both, because I won't stay married to a man who thinks love is something you can divide between multiple people. And Rose won't stay with a man who refuses to commit to his own child." Max looked up at her with desperate eyes. "How long do I have?" "Rose is 3 months pregnant. I want your decision before she starts showing, before this becomes public knowledge that could damage both our reputations." "That's only 3 months. Then you'd better start thinking seriously about what you really want." Max stood abruptly, pacing to the bar and pouring himself a double scotch. "What about you, Nina? What do you want?" "I want my husband back. I want the man who promised to love me and only me for the rest of his life. I want to believe that our marriage meant something more than convenience and social status." "It did. It does. Nina, you're my world." "Then prove it. Choose me." "And if I choose Rose?" Nina's voice was steady, but Max could see the devastation in her eyes. "Then I'll wish you both happiness, and I'll try to find a way to live with the fact that the love of my life chose someone else." Max drained his scotch and set the glass down with shaking hands. "I need time. You have time. But Max, while you're deciding, I want you to stay somewhere else. I can't look at you right now without seeing her, without thinking about what you've done. I can't pretend everything is normal while you figure out which woman you want to keep. Where am I supposed to go?" "I don't care. The casino has executive suites. Get a hotel room. Move in with Rose. Just don't be here." Max nodded slowly, understanding that he had no right to argue. "I'll pack some things." As he moved toward their bedroom, Nina called after him, "Max?" He turned, hope flickering in his eyes. "I meant what I said. If you choose me, it has to be completely. No secret visits to see your daughter. No financial support for Rose. No contact whatsoever. I won't be the wife who has to compete with your child for your attention." "That's cruel, Nina." "No, Max, cruel is what you did to me. This is just the price of your choices." After Max left with a suitcase full of clothes and a heart full of regret, Nina poured herself a glass of wine and stood on the balcony overlooking Las Vegas. The city glittered below her like a constellation of broken dreams, each light representing someone's hope, someone's gamble, someone's desperate attempt to change their fate. Nina had been raised in this world of high stakes and calculated risks. She understood that sometimes you had to bet everything on a single hand, knowing you might lose it all. She had just forced Max into the biggest gamble of his life. Now all she could do was wait to see which way the cards would fall. Sometime later, Nina stood in the nursery of their penthouse, watching Max rock their 6-month-old daughter to sleep. Sophia Rose Castellano, named for the woman who had almost destroyed their marriage and ultimately saved it, gurgled contentedly in her father's arms, her tiny fingers wrapped around his thumb. "She's perfect," Max whispered, his voice filled with wonder. "Absolutely perfect." Nina smiled, her hand resting on her rounded belly where their second child grew. "Just like her big sister." Max's eyes met hers across the room, and Nina saw the same love that had first captured her heart all those years ago. But now it was tempered with hard-won wisdom, deepened by forgiveness, strengthened by the knowledge that they had chosen each other even when it would have been easier to walk away. The path to this moment hadn't been simple or painless. Max had spent weeks agonizing over his choice, visiting Rose daily, trying to find a solution that wouldn't require him to abandon his child. But in the end, it was Rose herself who had made the decision for him. "I can't raise a daughter knowing her father stayed with me out of obligation," she had told Nina during one of their unexpected conversations. "And I can't build a relationship on the foundation of someone else's broken marriage. Max loves you, Nina. He always has. This baby and I, we were just a beautiful mistake." Rose had moved back to her hometown in Arizona, accepting a generous settlement that would ensure her daughter's future without tying her to the Castellano family. She sent occasional photos and updates, but kept her promise to give Max and Nina the space they needed to heal. "Do you ever regret it?" Nina asked softly, settling into the rocking chair beside Max, "choosing us over her?" Max was quiet for a long moment, his eyes fixed on Sophia's sleeping face. "I regret that I put us all in that position. I regret the pain I caused, the trust I broke, the months of lies. But choosing you, choosing our family, never. Even knowing you have another daughter out there, even knowing that," Max's voice was firm, certain. "Nina, what Rose and I had was passion, infatuation, a moment of weakness that spiraled out of control. What you and I have is love, real, deep, lasting love that survives even the worst mistakes." Nina reached over and touched Sophia's cheek, marveling at the softness of her skin. Their daughter had been born after a difficult pregnancy that had required months of bed rest and careful monitoring. But every moment of fear and discomfort had been worth it for this, for the family they had built from the ashes of betrayal. "I love you," Max said suddenly, his free hand finding Nina's. "I know I don't say it enough, but I love you more than I ever thought possible. You could have destroyed me, Nina. You could have taken everything and left me with nothing. Instead, you fought for us." "We fought for us," Nina corrected. "Both of us. Every day we choose each other. Every day we choose forgiveness over resentment, love over pride." Max stood carefully, placing Sophia in her crib and covering her with a soft pink blanket. Then he turned to Nina, pulling her into his arms with the reverence of a man who knew how close he had come to losing everything. "I have something for you," he said, reaching into his pocket and pulling out a small velvet box. Nina's breath caught. "Max, what?" "It's not what you think," he said quickly, opening the box to reveal a delicate gold necklace with a pendant shaped like a heart. "I know we're already married, but I wanted to give you something new. Something that represents who we are now, after everything we've been through." Nina lifted her hair so Max could fasten the necklace around her throat. The pendant rested just above her heart, warm from his touch. "There's an inscription," Max said softly. Nina lifted the pendant and read the tiny engraved words, "Chosen, always." Tears filled her eyes as she understood the meaning. In a world where love often felt accidental, temporary, conditional, they had chosen each other deliberately. Not just in the beginning when everything was easy and perfect, but in the middle of the storm, when staying together required courage and faith and the willingness to forgive the unforgivable. "Thank you," Nina whispered, standing on her toes to kiss him. "For choosing us, for fighting for us, for proving that love really can conquer everything." As they stood together in their daughter's nursery, surrounded by the quiet peace of their rebuilt life, Nina thought about the woman in Arizona who was raising Max's other daughter alone. She hoped Rose had found happiness, had discovered that sometimes the greatest act of love was letting go. And she hoped that someday, when Sophia was old enough to understand, they could tell her the truth about how she came to be, not from betrayal and lies, but from the decision to choose love over everything else. Outside their window, Las Vegas glittered in the desert night, a city built on chances and dreams and the belief that sometimes, against all odds, the gamble pays off. Nina and Max had bet everything on their love, and they had won. And that's how this incredible story comes to an end here at Mafia and Romance. If this tale of love, betrayal, and ultimate redemption touched your heart, make sure to hit that subscribe button and let us know in the comments which moment affected you the most. Your support means the world to us and helps us bring you more amazing stories like this one. Until our next emotional journey together,